Yes, please.
Yes, I'm Michelle Ramos. I am not a lawyer. And I hear all the technicalities and all the, obstacles here. And we know that, for a fact, it's going to take a long time, maybe not even in my lifetime, to have a quorum, for all through these technicalities. So my request now is that the board and the Forum for Value will really work sincerely to just take away all the obstacles. So
The problem is that we really have members who doesn't want to participate. That is one of our problems. So I think we probably have to go out and get them.
it's nothing personal, Mr. William, but it's just that I'm saying that we're going to get stuck again with the legal technicalities. So if we can please just ease up on the technicalities and find ways and means to make it easier for both parties to have a legal election held.
During the validation of the proxies, we received a total of 329 proxies. These were all validated. Okay. These were all validated. Out of the 329 proxies that were submitted on validation day, the proxies submitted by Ortigas and Company Limited Partnership, the representative or the designated proxy is not present. May we know if Mr. Roel Recinto is present? Mr. Roel Recinto is not present. For the information of everybody, the proxy submitted by Ortigas designated, appointed, named, and constituted J. Roel L. Recinto as its true and lawful proxy. But it deleted the portion which says, or in his absence, the chairman of the meeting. So if Mr. Recinto is not present, we have to remove from the counting the 175 shares of Ortigas and Company Limited Partnership. So we are now left for just the validated proxies, 329 minus 175 for 154 persons or members or shares present by proxy. As of closing time, we have a total of 94 members present in person. So 194 plus 154 gives us a total of 248 members present in person by proxy. How do we now count quorum? In the past, we have always said that quorum is determined by the total outstanding shares less the delinquent, and then we divide and we get the majority, which is divided by 2 plus 1. However, it was pointed out to us that in section 15 of our bylaws, it is very clearly stated, save in those cases where the law provides otherwise, the presence of proprietary members representing a majority of the outstanding proprietary membership certificates, whether in person or represented by proxy, shall constitute a quorum. Therefore, to determine a quorum, you do not discount or deduct.
On the next annual meeting, The purpose of this really is to be able to get a quorum. We personally, we would like to have a quorum.
Ladies and gentlemen, we only have 248 shares present now by proxy and in person. Mr. Chairman, we do not have a quorum.
May we know what happened to the 580 proxies that were submitted last September and which were valid for 5 years as stipulated therein in the proxy?
Attorney Malaya, to reply to this.
As regards the 580 shares validated last year, in the validation for this year, I did not include the same. Under our laws, under our amended implementing rules, SRC Rule 20, on the other procedural requirements, B, proxy, Section 12, it is clearly stated, a proxy shall be valid only for the meeting for which it is intended. This is contained in the amended implementing rules and regulation for Securities Regulation Code. Also, in my study, I have an opinion of the SEC. This is your SEC opinion dated July 7, 1997, which I read for the record. A person soliciting proxies in the case of SRC registered or publicly held companies is no longer allowed to obtain total discretion to vote shares for up to 5 years as now allowed in the Corporation Code. Rather, proxies are restricted for use only in a particular meeting or for voting on a particular proposal. The rationale behind the restriction that no proxy shall confer authority to vote to more than one meeting is to prevent situations where the proxy holders would still be holding the shares which are no longer owned by the persons who executed the proxies. This situation likely occurs in case of publicly held listed shares because of the shares of subsequent transfers on traded stocks. This is an SEC opinion dated July 7, 1997, addressed to Romulo Mabanta, Buenaventura Sayop, and De Los Angeles.
But is that ruling only for publicly listed companies?
This is for Securities Regulation Code. It states specifically, a person soliciting proxies in the case of SRC, registered or publicly held companies. We belong to SRC registered and publicly held companies because we are complying with the SRC codal regulations of the SEC. Every time we have a meeting, we are required to submit information statement and definitive statement. This is a requirement of the SRC. We have to comply with it, and they even require us to have independent directors.
I have But I am just wondering why 6 months ago, the club, which presumably was with the approval of the board, issued an official proxy form that contained a statement that says that this proxy is valid for 5 years. Moreover, no less than the president and myself went to the SEC late January to get their opinion whether this proxy form issued by the club, which stipulates that it's valid for 5 years, is still valid or not, given that what we gathered from the president, that the assistant Corset's opinion is not valid because there are 3 names in the list of nominees which were not in the list last September. And the opinion given to us by the SEC was that the proxy is valid insofar as for quorum purposes. However, the proxy holder is not allowed or is not qualified to vote the 3 new names because they were not existent in the previous list. Now, given all of this, I'm still wondering why the club issued this proxy form, approved by the board, used by the club to gather proxies, and stating there that it's valid for 5 years. This is a complete disservice to the members. We are being misled. I'm wondering also whether these SRC rules were only promulgated between September and now.
Well, just to put the record straight.
One more please, with your apologies, Mr. President. Can the body also be informed if this decision to invalidate the 580 proxies is with the approval of the board?
Well, but initially, just to put the...
Please, we want to know if the board approved this position.
First, I would like to answer, why the management went ahead with these proxies. To start with, we obtained August 2022 2012, a response from the SEC that the documents, including the proxy form, was compliant with SRC Rule 20. That is the reason why we proceeded.
Again, please, with your apologies, may I make this observation? This proxy form issued in September 2012 was issued by the club. This proxy form was sent by the club together with the definitive statement to the SEC. This proxy form together with the definitive statement was approved by the SEC. If the proxy form was infirm, I don't think the club would have, the SEC would have approved it. So, I'm really completely at a loss.
Was it approved by the board?
But again, I go back. Was this approved by the board? We need to hear because the board has the final say on this.
May I be allowed to answer this question, Mr. President?
Okay, please.
We just want to know. Was it approved by the board?
Mr. Malaya did not, was the corporate secretary at the time. So we better have his secretary certificate and let him read it.
Was there a meeting?
Secretary Certificate. I, Noel M. Malaya of Legal Age, being the duly elected incumbent Assistant Corporate Secretary of Valle Verde Country Club, a domestic corporation duly organized and existing under by virtue of Philippine laws, with principal office at Pasig, Metro Manila, after having been sworn according to law, hereby deposed at state. That at a special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Corporation held on February 19, 2013, at which meeting a quorum was present and acting throughout, the following resolutions were approved and passed. Resolved, that is hereby resolved, that opinion of the Assistant Corporate Secretary to the effect that the proxies submitted for the September 29, 2012 annual members meeting of 2000 are not valid for the coming February 23, 2013 meeting of the 2013 annual members meeting be upheld as provided for the amended implementing rules of the Securities Regulation Code to wit, SRC Rule 20, disclosures to stockholders prior to meeting, other procedural requirements, open close, being of close code proxy. 12. A proxy shall be valid only for the meeting for which it is intended. Addressed to Romulo Mabanta Buenaventura Sayop de Los Angeles, which held that a person soliciting proxies in the case of SRC regulated companies or publicly held companies is no longer allowed to obtain discretion to vote shares for up to 5 years, as now allowed in the corporate. 2. And in an opinion of the Securities and Exchange Commission issued last July 1997, code, rather, proxies are restricted for use only in a particular meeting or for voting only on a particular proposal. The foregoing resolution has not been revoked, amended, or in any manner modified, and accordingly the same may be relied upon until a written notice to the contrary is issued by the corporation. In witness whereof, I have hereby to set my hand this 23rd day of February 2013 at Pasig, Metro Manila. I have signed the Secretary Certificate in my capacity as acting as Assistant Corporate Secretary.
Can I just say some more? Just to add to this, just for the record, my position is that the 580 proxies validated for September 29, 2012, as for me, it is valid. But in the board, we act as a body. You know, we act as a body. No individual member is vested with any power. And any act of the majority of the board is part of the corporate act of the board.
May I, Mr. President?
Yes.
May we know who voted and how they voted? Everybody voted.
It's Mr. Malaya, the Attorney Malaya is the one who takes, you know,
I suppose you as president, and it's clear here that you are the one responsible, not Mr. Malaya.
Before I answer that, Mr. David, I have to get clearance from the board.
Oh, papasahan na tayo. Well, anyway, I don't expect Mr. Malaya to answer that question because it's very clearly enshrined in our articles and bylaws that you as president are responsible. So the questions would be very simply, how many board directors attended that meeting and how did they vote? You already stated that you voted for. Thank you.
we have 5 members of the board who attended. In presence, those who were present we were 4, and Attorney Santiago joined by a teleconference. Well, I voted, you know, for the validity of the 580. As far as I'm concerned, you know, 580, and that's what I know.
Thank you. Maybe since the other directors are here, by the way, I thank them because in the past we did not have the benefit or the pleasure of their attendance. So it really matters to the members. At this meeting, we would like to know, in as much as they are present, how they voted. It would be appreciated to know.
May I give this mic to Mr. Gamboa?
Let me start by saying that I'm doing this for the service of the club. There is no forum, and I am not obliged to answer any question. However, I always answer for what I do, Romy. I think we've known each other for a long time. I voted against it because I was presented by Attorney Malaya, and together with the other members of the board who voted against it, with documents quoting established laws and established rules. We did not favor Attorney Malaya, with all due respect to our assistant court. We favored the law. We favored what was written in the rules and procedures. You see, in our position, we cannot be overcautious about what we do. We are now in the age of transparency. Anybody can file a suit against anybody. My last case was a libel case, which I knew I would not lose, but I lost sleep over it. But then after that, I said, I don't want any more suits against me. So the best thing to do for me to avoid this is just to follow the law, follow the procedures, follow the rules.
Thank you. It's very well
I
appreciated.
voted.
Thank you. It's very well appreciated. The position is to vote against. So we have 1 against.
You know, just for Mr. David, I mean, can the crowd just...
Please keep quiet.
I mean, can you keep quiet, please? You know, I mean, we're not here, you know, to be shouting at each other.
Please. So we can get something done. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. D, how did you vote that issue?
Well, I have the same opinion with Butch, no? Because we only follow rules.
Thank you.
Rules
So
on
you voted
SEC.
in negative.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So that's now 2 against 1. And our good Attorney Santiago. I suppose you would know what you voted. Point of order, Mr. President. It would be embarrassing for people to think that this is scripted.
Ngayon na nagpapaniwala sa presinto na lang yan. Naboto na daw. Sina-explain pa.
Tingnan na lang yung record.
Other votes na lang gumawa. Moro-moro.
Mr. President would be appreciative of being favored with a simple yes or no.
Actually, I just want to, to get Attorney Santiago's comments on this vote.
If he's tired, all he has to do is say yes or no. Or he abstain.
Kawawa naman yan. Getting rest naman.
Well, no, I think, well, the vote of Attorney Santiago is the legal opinion of
Sustain.
Attorney Malaya.
So we don't have to go much further. We have 3 against, right?
Well, at least right now we've seen, that there are at least 3 votes and there are only 5.
We want to be in Santiago.
I have a question. The ones who signed the minutes is Mr. President, who signed the minutes? Our corporate or assistant corporate? Assistant corporate. Well, it says here very clearly in section 19 that the assistant corporate secretary is to prepare for the signature of the secretary all notices of the board and members' meetings, shall be responsible for all records pertaining to the board and members' meetings, and prepare the minutes of all meetings of the board correspondence. You shall keep an up-to-date index of board members, resolutions, and perform other functions required by the board or the secretary. Clearly, in this, as it is annotated here, he has no authority to sign. And we know the reason why the corporate secretary did not sign the document.
The corporate secretary is indisposed.
In that case, if he cannot discharge his functions properly, would it not be decent for him and in respect to everybody else and the board members to resign his office so that others can be elected to do the functions properly?
well, you know, just to tell you, we can just resign.
Why not?
Just like that.
Why
The reason
not?
for that is, you know, there are salaries and wages to be paid. There are...
No, Mr. President, you didn't understand what I said. I just said for the corporate secretary to resign his office, I didn't say for him to resign as the director. Now, the directors now can elect another person in place so that the job of corporate secretary can be done properly. Right now, as it is, Mr. Malaya has no accountability, and you perpetuate this properly without proper.
Actually, our constraint at the moment was was the Supreme Court decision on the case of the late Pocholo Ramirez. When we appointed Mr. Ramirez as a member of the board, one of the members of the club filed a case against the board before the RTC, Pasig. And it was decided that we cannot appoint a new member of the board being a holdover board.
I agree.
So we went
I
to
know
the Supreme
that's
Court.
the Africa decision of the
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
And
yes.
then we went to the Supreme Court, and it was only decided, I don't know, maybe 10 years later.
Was sustained.
Sustained the... So at the moment, we are only 7.
Mr. President, that is not the issue that I ask. Why can you not elect amongst yourselves a new corporate secretary if he is indisposed or incapable of dispensing his responsibilities?
I think my problem is that I'm not sure if there are other members of the board who will accept the position of corporate secretary.
Well, that's speculation, and that's not your role. Speculate.
Yeah. Anyway,
You can elect Attorney Malaya because he is not barred from being corporate secretary. You don't have to be a board member to be corporate secretary.
under the bylaws, you have to be director to be a corporate secretary.
I don't think so. It says that it shall elect amongst its members, etc., but it does not bar you from electing somebody that's not on board. The truth is, Mr. Malaya is dispensing responsibilities of that which has been delegated to the board.
Can I answer the question, Mr. President? I read Section 19, Organization of Board. As soon as possible after an annual election, the 9 elected directors shall meet and organize the board by electing a president and chairman of the board, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer from among themselves. So you have to be a member of the board to become a secretary.
Well, I have no objection amongst themselves. So you just clarified that point, which I forwarded earlier, that they can't elect amongst themselves a new corporate secretary who's able to dispense with, to dispose of his responsibilities. If our corporate secretary cannot make it to the meeting, then clearly, how do we know as members that actual teleconference has been happening? Is it recorded? I am part of other corporations that when teleconferencing happens, it has to be documented properly.
Yes, that's why...
How do we know that it is and it's not fictitious?
well, I don't think we will submit, something that is fictitious.
We don't know. I'm not accusing, but I said, it is your responsibility to present it.
This is recorded, so I think the minutes...
Then why will we not be allowed to see the minutes?
Yes, you must copy.
You have not allowed us to see the minutes.
Choose the minutes.
May I cannot understand your question.
Why?
Kailan ba yung meeting? When is the meeting?
When was the meeting held?
The meeting was held last February 19. Although we don't get a quorum, if you notice the proxy form, that this number of proxies received will already be part of the required proxy for the next meeting. That is the difference between the past solicitation of proxies. We don't have to go back to zero and solicit. So with this proxy, 580, depends now how many members will be of good standing. The big difference in today's proxy form is that instead of in the past, we have to work on proxy from zero. Now, we can start working on proxy starting at 580. So let's just be patient, and I hope that we could really get a proxy on February.
That's possible because the proxies that we have here has a life of 5 years. So from the time we date it, it will have 5 years life.
Bulang. 19 lang.
Very convenient. Anyway,
I understand that Atty. Malaya is quite busy, campaigning for the IDP. Can I just declare that there is no quorum?
No.
I think that's a very, very unfair. On the contrary, you have to first prove that there is no quorum. We would like to see the document.
My fellow members, as much as I'd like to accommodate you in all your discussion, I have a very important meeting which I left out.
There's no moment for us. That's okay. That's okay.
Mr.
You're not needed anyway by the board.
Mr. Gamboa, Butch Gamboa,
Excuse me! Excuse me!